an opportunity to introduce Dr. Kalyana Chejarla. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Kalyan Garu, Professor Garu Unara. You're there, right? Yeah.
I'm there, Sheikh. Yeah,
Thank
pleasure
you
being here.
for joining, and also apologies for little late. So we run out of we are running little late, like 10 minutes late. But now I think we took more time. But you will cover it up. Okay. So we are talking about supply chain skills and education by Dr. Kalyana Chejarla. He's a professor, and we talk more about Kalyan Garu. So let me give a quick introduction. Professor Kalyana Chejarla, with 18 plus years of experience in supply chain domain at Tata Motors, HCL, TCS, Dell International Services. His extensive experience in dealing with supply chain, all kind of supply chain initiatives. So he dealt extensively with global customers and authored a book, Lean Management for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, published by Springer. Yeah, so it is a very quick introduction, Kalyan Garu. Please, you can introduce yourself because you are doing a lot of things, and each time I talk, you bring something new. Okay, so over to you, Dr. Garu. Yeah.
Thank you. Sure. I'll share my screen here.
You can share. You can put the PPT in a PowerPoint mode, slide.
Yeah.
Then you can share it. Yeah, that will be easy. Yeah. Yep. Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Abdul Garu, and very good afternoon to the participants here. First, let me thank the opportunity given to me to share my thoughts around this topic on supply chain skills and education. I also congratulate the Data Labs and Frucy team for having put together such a impressive lineup of speakers on a very wide and relevant range of topics. So before I proceed, Abdul, could you please confirm if I'm audible and my
You are
screen is
audible,
visible?
and we can also see your screen. Yeah, please proceed.
All right. So let me just move on. Give me a second, please. Okay. So my topic today is supply chain skills and education. Broadly speaking, continuous learning is a must for whoever is the professional, and therefore no different requirement for a supply chain professional also, but perhaps maybe much more relevant for a supply chain professional, especially given the huge amount of dynamics that we see at play in the current times, right? So I thought it's very apt for us to recall a quote by Peter Drucker, the management guru, who says that we now accept the fact that learning is a lifelong process of keeping abreast of change. Yeah, change is all around us, and if we don't keep ourselves up to date, we will soon be irrelevant. But the challenge, I guess, is captured very well in the second half of this code, which is, and the most pressing task is to teach people how to learn, right? Most organizations somehow, while keep pressing folks that you must be continuously up to date, I believe there is some more yet to be done in terms of how to create that environment of learning. So with that, let me move on. What is the context of this talk today here, right? So particularly, I'm going to restrict myself to the supply chain skills and learnings. Thinking supply chain management is not as intuitive as thinking any functional business domain. So I will talk about why it is not so intuitive shortly. Normally, we all are managers in one or other particular department and then one or other company. So the actions that we take in our respective company, respective function, result in some kind of an action effect, right? The issue here is that the effect is separated in terms of time and space, and that is the essence of your supply chain management. We do not really get to know or spend enough time and effort in being able to understand where is the cause and what is the effect and how far are they separated from. That's what is being covered in good amount of supply chain education these days. Because of this so-called separation in time and space effect, one requires to elevate oneself from the current local optimization thinking that can come only with some external help when there is a external coaching, and that's the reason why we are talking about this topic. Also, what makes things more complicated is newer business models are coming up, right? So gone are the days when we say supply chain, I dig iron ore and make steel out of it, and then from steel I'll make whatever, cars, and then sell, and then all that is done, right? So that is a kind of supply chain that we are all probably more used to. However, the newer models, such as platform models, sharing economy kind of models, are rewriting the very logic of supply chain on its head, right? So, all the more a reason why what kind of supply chain logic is relevant in what kind of business models somebody needs. All of us need to know. Finally, I mean, given the ever-evolving nature of SEM, people need to learn about what are the new SC models and keep going. So this is what I'm going to be talking today. So it's easy enough for us to state that supply chain consists of three flows, which is information, product, and funds. I think every supply chain talk will probably present this. I guess what gets missed out when we look at a slide like this is this: each of the flows that we are talking about is the responsibility in a functional organization of different functions. And when we say that a true supply chain management is that integrates the flow, intertwines the flow of all these three flows nicely together, is a well managed supply chain. So already we are talking of a cross functional integration, which essentially imply that finance handling the funds flow, logistics handling the product flow, and IT and IS systems handling the information flow need to sort of come together, make sure that the supply chain is operating in a more seamless manner. So therefore, that itself implies that everybody, I mean, people working in different functions of an organization need to understand how their work depends on the other functions department. My previous talks in the global edition actually are neatly covered in these flows. So the immediately previous talk was on supply chain finance, in which I extensively discussed about the funds flow in supply chain, and the previous couple of talks focused on the new age supply chain models, information systems, and business models. So there I talked about product and information. So I guess therefore this talk is a logical next step for me to cover all of this and help elevate the mindset of the attending managers here. All right. So there are some forces that are at play here that have brought supply chain to the current levels of extraordinary performance as against what we have seen sometime around in 1980s. So if you see, there are 3 to 4 forces that are at play. Information systems, for instance, very early days we had IT packages called MRP1, MRP2, which got extended to ERP, and then you have integrated your suppliers and customers using EDI and other online technologies. And these days, e-commerce is practically a way of connecting with both my customers as well with my suppliers for any given, even a mid to small scale organization. That's on the information system side. Technology has a bigger umbrella. If you see on the operating technology, also there have been huge amount of developments. So what all began with simple programmable logic controls that were there on standalone machines that you would see on the shop floor have become much more integrated in the form of computer aided design manufacturing and computer integrated manufacturing also, which got automated in the early part of 2000s through your robotics, automated guiding vehicles, machine to machine communication, and IoT. Now we have in Industry 4.0 powered operating technology. Machines are able to communicate with the product that is passing through them, right? So all the customization that is needed for individual products is embedded in the overall flow of communication between the machine and the product, right? On the communication front, huge developments. So from your 3G to current 5G, and people are already talking about 6G also. The biggest challenge that telecommunication advances has helped supply chain management is the ease of information flow, right? So the ability to transmit huge amounts of data from one corner of the globe to another corner of the globe has really improved the way supply chain transactions have occurred. And even some products that are digitized kind of products can actually be sold on telecommunication network, as we all know, like movies and other kind of stuff. And on the money front, simple cash transactions have already been left behind long time, left behind back. Now we have practically most of the B2B transactions are online payments, and we are also looking at digital currencies that are being introduced by lot of countries, including India, right? So how is this going to affect the overall funds flow in supply chains? Is something that we need to watch for and make adjustments. And this, if this is a story that we are looking at only up to last decade, this decade is seeing even more huge changes in supply chains. Sense and respond, omni-channel fulfillment, new business models. These are all the newer horizons in front of supply chain managers. A common slide that most of you would probably know is how did the supply chain itself evolve, right? So early on, it were different functions, each of which was being handled in an isolated manner, which got consolidated, particularly for the material and the distribution side of it, came to be called as logistics. So this was the era of, I would say, around Second World War. That was when this term logistics also became popular. Then came the information technology revolution, so to speak. And that's when your information and funds flow got integrated with the materials flow that you see here to become what is called as supply chain, to be called as what is called as supply chain management. So what we are looking at is, overall, who is adding what kind of value in the overall product, and who is capturing how much of that particular value. So that is essentially the today's DNA of supply chain management. And the reason why I'm saying this is because once again, those the supply chain managers that are listening to this talk need to think from what is today's demand in terms of the customer's need, rather than what or how supply chains were designed for yesterday's customers. All right. So moving on, I mean, traditional functional view, local optimization, we know, I mean, typically a given organization consists of, even today, right? I mean, these are some common departments that you will see, such as procurement, inventory control or materials management department, warehouse or logistics department, materials handling departments, order processing, usually your sales and distribution team, transportation team, customer service team, planning team, right? These are different departments for, and they're out there for different reasons. And the sub bullets that you see here are the decisions or areas that these departments are responsible for. What ends up happening is that each of these functions take a siloed view and then do a local optimization. And when they do that, what is the implication? I want to illustrate through an example here. Say you are an organization and we are looking at transportation as one of the departments, and in all its good intention, transportation department, if it wants to do a good job, what does it do, right? It would want to deliver at lowest total transportation cost, rightfully. And what is the variable, I mean, what is it that it can play around with so that such an objective can be fulfilled, right? So the thing that is in its hand is only very limited set of variables, that is, select a carrier, which kind of a carrier, who will be able to ship things at the lowest possible transportation to the customer, right? So then the so-called transportation team will have to live with few constraints that are imposed on them. For example, you could have a constraint that may say that from a customer standpoint, for example, I would like you to supply every item in your whatever catalog to me on everyday basis. So there has to be some quantities, and that has to be supplied on every day. And there are some specific time windows. That's when my warehouse docking doors will be open for you, and you will need to be present, your truck needs to be present in that particular window. So this is a type of a narrow problem statement if I was just looking at transportation as my responsibility. The moment I broaden my horizon, for example, I include, let's say, customer service and transportation, that is, the company's logistics team, the transportation team, and also the sales team, if they collectively sit together and have a discussion as to what's the best way of serving our customer, all right, I mean, this goal of delivering at lowest transportation cost holds good, but the variables that are in our hands will get expanded. For example, the sales team might have some amount of what do you call say with the customer in terms of negotiating a different time windows. And the moment I get a flexibility, or that choice of delivery time window is in my hands, I can probably I am at a I have a larger play in terms of choosing a right kind of a mode of transportation, right? So that's what we're talking about. And just to expand it further, if the whole organization, like for example, is considered as one single system, and that's the reason this is called as a supply chain as a system, right? So delivering at lowest total cost will still be the overall goal, no doubt, but the number of variables that are mm, that I can play around with will increase, right? And that improves my ability to do a better job at the organizational level. And this doesn't stop here, right? So it's not just the logistics team, but I can look at my manufacturing and product design team also, right? So the moment I include them, what am I doing here, right? I mean, I'm not just taking a product as a given and then shipping it, but I'm going ahead one step deeper into my supply chain to look at what my product design itself should be, right? So you will see that I am now talking of a different problem in the sense that at a much higher level than a transactional ship at the lowest transportation cost. Instead of that, I am now in the bigger, what do you call, problem statement area of customer. So read this objective, for example: design, build, and deliver at lowest total cost. So I can do lot many things differently, um, right from my material choice, right from my process choice, right from my packaging choice, and be able to give much more superior result to the end customer. Yes, the problem has become clearly much more complicated, but that's not really too much of a problem in today's context. In today's context, our computing power has shot through the roof. I mean, today's the cell phone that we have today has more power than probably 100 computers put together just about a couple of decades back, right? So the kind of computing that is available in the fingertips of organization is substantial. So solving these kind of problems, larger optimization problems, is not at all difficult. All right. I mean, why do we stop at functional integration alone? So you will see that on my what do you call left side, I was so far talking about functional integration. Now I have brought in, the suppliers here and the retailers here. I mean, basically the customer here. So I am now integrating or talking about problem statement that consists of a larger, both my upstream supplier and downstream player, right? And how would my problem statement look like? I am maximizing my on shelf availability, right? And this is when the entire supply chain gets benefited. Forget about the smaller, I'm not saying ignore, but the smaller, whether I should ship using this truck or that truck, or I should use that window or this delivery window, are all part of a bigger problem, which is how do we maximize collectively the entire supply chain's surplus. I will talk about what is the surplus in a couple of slides down the line. But you see, I mean, the power of working collaboratively with bigger, larger cross-functional teams will automatically improve our ability of create more choices for us in being able to solve the problem in a more holistic sense, rather than define a very narrow problem and within that try to find the better spot, right? So this is essentially, right? I mean, why are we talking about this in today's talk is essentially, when we say supply chain management, I mean, while textbooks say that integration, collaboration, coordination are all really the essential elements of supply chain, this doesn't come intuitively for a practicing supply chain manager. And that is where continuous education is needed to be provided for them to illustrate, I mean, through some kind of a simulation, some kind of a games, to show them the impact of, if you operate in a local optimization mode, this is a kind of profit you're looking at the end of the year. And if you're operating at a slightly higher, broader kind of a collaboration level, this is the kind of profit you're looking at. I mean, the stochasticity, so to speak, the randomness is all out there, and based on that you need to take decisions. So given that, I mean, what's the best way of operating? This can come to people when they see the results and immediately. Unfortunately, as I said, few slides back, the effect of decisions that are taken today by a supply chain manager, the effect of it happens elsewhere, maybe not in this organization but some other organization, maybe not today but 3 months down the line, right? And by then the what do you call, the entire essence behind my decision making is sort of lost, right? So that's a point that I'm trying to make here. All right. So this is an example. So expand it and look at integrated supply chain, not just at one level, but add more. All right. So I talked about this term called supply chain surplus, right? Essentially, I mean, from a textbook definition standpoint, it is what the customer perceives in terms of the final product that she receives from the supply chain, and the cumulative total cost of the supply chain in being able to deliver that particular product. Now, this this is clearly a departure from looking at things from an individual enterprise perspective, right? And it is not going to come automatically. It will require at least the leaders in specific supply chains to bring about the right distributors and suppliers and share this kind of a perspective, right? So, but I guess, I mean, the moment supply chain managers realize that the only true source of revenue that they can ever imagine is what they are making from the end customer, not what I am selling to my next guy in the line. I mean, I can force a huge lot to be sold to my distributor, but if it doesn't finally get sold to the end customer, all I really ended up doing is pushing my next month's sales to this month, That is all that I have really done, but I haven't really maximized my so-called revenue in the longer, in a truest kind of a sense, right? So I think if everyone, I mean, at least the leading players in the supply chain, if they understand this particular point, it will automatically become natural for them to increase the extent of collaboration and coordination. All right. And what does the cost come from? I mean, I said that, flow of information, product, and funds, and each of it costs money, and that is what is going to cause the cost. All right. Having said this, I mean, let's also admit that while the extent of integration that is being talked about supply chain is limited only to the textbooks, and the real world hasn't seen it, that is not entirely true also. I mean, there have been huge number of developments. Granted that, that needs to go to the lowest level. My previous speaker did talk about some challenges with respect to SMEs. The leaders perhaps are following good ESG practices, but when it comes to SMEs, the level of adoption is far low. If you refer to my previous talk on supply chain finance, there I talked about the challenges faced by SMEs in terms of having good access to, right supply chain finance. So having said that, I mean, perhaps I'm deviating a bit here. All the good things that we see in terms of developments in supply chain, any of the flows, granted, always do occur at tier one OEM, tier two kind of players, but it takes quite a while for those kind of good practices systems to flow all the way to the tier N. That is usually in any given country, I mean, including the most developed countries, the last component level suppliers are usually small and medium guys, right? So those good practices, I mean, they need to be essentially integrated into the larger supply chains. All right. So this slide is giving a quick perspective in terms of how is the integration getting evolved in various supply chains. So essentially, the earliest view was structural view. That is, think of it like a skeleton, right? I mean, if supply chain was a person, then the structural view is like a skeleton, the backbone, the whatever ribs and whatever, etc. Right? So who all are various players? That kind of a view, but that doesn't make a person, right? I mean, there need to be flow, there need to be some kind of a fitness, etc., etc. So how do individual pieces work with each other is talked about in cross-functional view. There have been huge amount of development on that front. All right, I mean, through this so-called person, through the supply chain, material has to flow, information has to flow. How do we make sure that these flows are enabled? Then the BPM view, the business process management view, right, has come into being, which is the so-called operation of any given supply chain is really a cumulative effect of thousands of individual transactions, individual cycles, right? Are the systems, are the people, are whatever that mechanisms that we have put in place, are they uh, enabling smooth and synchronous transactions to occur between various players, right? So this is come to be a more modern kind of a view. So individual ERPs may enable transactions within an organization, but how do you expand it, right? And emerging views are up and coming newer business models, right? So some trade-offs may not be, I mean, trade-offs are not already obvious. So I'll just talk about one or two examples here. For instance, I want to increase my lot size, because if I increase my lot size, then my cost of transportation sort of goes down, right? But while on one side the cost is probably going down of transportation, but what is getting increased is the inventory carrying cost, right? While inventory carrying, if you just look at one single organization, the inventory just increasing still sounds like a minor problem, but hidden behind the inventory is a bigger bigger issue of mismatch of supply and demand, and that will, I will show this in my next slide also, that will create a accumulated effect of amplified errors in your inventory levels across the supply chain, and that is called as a bullwhip effect, right? Likewise, I want to, for example, reduce my transportation cost. The logical thing to do is to, instead of sending it by trucks, I'll send it by train. And if I have to send it by train, then the most economical size is probably one container full, and that is automatically going to increase my inventory cost. So all right, I mean, if this is a trade off, is there no workaround for it? So the progressive companies, the ones that questioned this trade-off, are the ones that came up with solutions. And these solutions weren't automatically possible just about a couple of decades back. Only with the advent of the information technology, one's ability to share, the demand and supply information across various supply chain players has resulted in a phenomena called cross-docking. And cross-docking is a instantaneous shift of inbound material to the outbound material in a given warehouse without ever needing to keep any inventory in the warehouse, right? So Walmart, world's leading physical retailer, is the pioneer at this, and obviously many other players have learned from them later on. So there are more trade-offs like this that do not um, uh, very obviously become evident to various players. Another example, maybe if you want to see, a marketing team, right, would always be keen on introducing higher levels of variety, right? While on the face of it, the logic is that increased level of sales, but the flip side, I mean the flop side of it is that increased inventory. How does supply chain folks stand up to this kind of a challenge, right? So there is a newer modern so-called supply chain management technique called delayed differentiation. So all the customization that I can possibly do that is closer to the customer, I will try to push it down in my supply chain. So gone are the days when I do customization in the assembly line, but I will have my distributor handle a little bit of my customization so that I will send a common kind of a product as close as possible to the customer, right? So these are all some developments, and for all of us in the call here, these do not become automatically evident. So we need to learn this. We need to see this at play in different industries. We need to experiment this in our own organizations and see the results and then implement. And it is a continuous journey, right? So that is what I'm trying to drive at, which is essentially the need for us to develop a more broader and a holistic view of supply chain management. Now I have few more slides on the need part of it. I will sort of not spend too much of time on those slides, just give you a perspective and really sort of move quickly on that. So with the increase in order quantity, for instance, always it is beneficial for the seller is always wanting to supply larger quantities in each lot, because economies of scale will come into an effect. But buyer's cost will increase. Buyer meaning the next guy in the supply chain, right? He needs to keep inventory, and sometimes that ends up being a wrong inventory also. So inventory carrying cost will increase for the buyer. So there is a tussle conflict. It appears, I mean, from this graph, it appears that one guy's gain is one guy's loss in a supply chain, right? If that is a takeaway that we have here, then there will never be any kind of a collaboration. But if seller understand that it is a buyer who is actually going to finally sell the item and get the revenue, then it is quite likely that both of these guys come together, figure out what is the best way of doing it, and continuously. So if this is the most optimal order quantity, seller will work in such a way that can he do something in terms of cost reduction to be able to pull his curve down further down, right? So if he's able to pull the curve down further, then the order quantity will get further reduced, and that gives a huge amount of leverage to the buyer in terms of keeping more varieties of item, thereby pushing larger throughput through the supply chain, right? This kind of one guy wins, one guy loses mindset, when it goes out of the window, newer solutions will start to come into play. All right, I said I will not spend too much time on this slide, but I did talk good extent. Let me move on. So these are some trade-offs. Straight pick from textbooks. You could go through that yourself. Pretty, I think, uh, self-evident. Bullwhip effect. So I talked about it shortly, right? So a short, small, amplification in terms of demand variation that is seen at the customer end when it moves up the supply chain to the tier one supplier, tier two supplier, tier three supplier, and finally whoever it is. The amplification is pretty huge. So it is a well-studied phenomena in supply chains, and it is called as bullwhip effect. And the reason it is called bullwhip effect is because it looks like a whip, right? So if you position yourself at this end, right, and if you have a whip on your hand, and you give a with a minor flick of your wrist, if you flip a whip, then there'll be a minor variation here, but as it reaches the upstream, it is pretty high. And is it that they are having low inventory, and that is the reason why this bullwhip effect is causing? It is actually the other way around. I mean, as you move up the supply chain, it is usually that the upstream guys are sitting on large inventories, but for want of orders, right? So and the downstream guys are always stocking out, probably because they've done error in the forecasting, right? So they have wrong stock and unable to sell, and likewise that effect goes on. Okay, so is it that easy? I mean, can if that is the case, then should we do collaboration with everybody? I mean, any given supply chain will have hundreds of suppliers. I mean, a mid-size supply chain, if not thousands, right? So is it even practically feasible to have a good extent of collaboration with everybody? I mean, simply, clearly not. Therefore, Pareto rule, right? I mean, 80-20. I mean, who are the suppliers with whom 80% of the effects are seen, or 80% of the business is being done? Let's try to do increase our level of collaboration with them, and then gradually increase, right? So if you see this 2 by 2 here, number of relations on the x-axis and the extent of collaboration, right? So you would have transactional collaboration with probably most of your suppliers, right? And as you move through this arrow in this direction, the extent of collaboration increases, starting from cooperative collaboration to coordinated to synchronized collaboration, right? So you will have the so-called synchronized collaboration only with a select set of suppliers with whom you have a lot of business, right? So by synchronization, what are we saying? Our information systems are in sync, systems infrastructure is in sync, decision support systems are in sync, planning is in sync, and so on, so right? So that is basically what we are talking about. So we are not emphasizing that by supply, because by supply chain management we mean that it is coordination. We also realize that any given supply chain is a large network of suppliers. So therefore, smartly decide who are the ones with whom I want to have deeper levels of collaboration. There are so this is just one framework that I presented here. There are a lot of other practical frameworks that are suggested by a lot of researchers and supply chain practitioners also. I would suggest you look at some of the books published by Association for Supply Chain Management website that I'm going to show to you shortly. Also, so there are some practical frameworks that I've seen in some of the books published by them also. All right. So we all have seen expansion of business models also. Earlier, what we are familiar with, the most common Supply chain is a product company which makes a product. So each product is made and sold one, right? So that is a kind of service provider. They will hire one and sell one. Software company, take Microsoft for example, right? So they will make one version. I mean, whatever effort that it takes for them to come up with Windows 10, for example, that is one product. And once having made, they will just sell copies of it, right? So the kind of supply chain that is relevant for this kind of a company versus this kind of a company, you will clearly see that the phenomenal difference, right? So therefore, one size doesn't fit all. If that is complicated enough, then we today have a completely different kind of business model called a platform business model, where the capacity is fragmented, right? So you have big huge factory making, responsible for making products, big huge hotel that has a lot of properties, big huge education institute that has university that has a lot of classrooms. All are these are big companies having a lot of capacity, right? So that is broken down in terms of suppliers. The capacity is fragmented. That is seen on the supply side of the market, so to speak, and there is a demand side of the market that is also seen there. So my next slide gives little more details on that. Essentially, if you see from make one and sell one model to a platform model, is many people make it and many people sell it, right? So this is called as a platform model. We see that all around us. These are some examples that you see here. Apart from what are listed here, Uber and Ola are pretty common examples. Oyo rooms, and so on and so forth. So essentially, the platform works like this. There is consumers, right? So there are demand side effects, as so to speak, and there are producers. There are, which is called as a supply side effect. So both of these are brought together on what is called as a platform, and this platform is probably provided by a third party guy. They create rules for engagement, and they create one size drives other, the other side drives the other. So the role of a platform guy, I mean, if you are the so-called supply chain of a platform business, then your role is more about creating those so-called network effects. So network effects is a word that is used. So one added customer will cause more suppliers to join, and one added supplier will cause more customers to join. So that kind of effect will self-propagate. These are some examples, right? So maker platforms. So maker platforms are characterized or typified by the people that are on the platform are the ones who create services or products, right? So YouTube, for example, I mean, content is created, right? Closed development platform are the places where programs are updated, or open development platforms. Similarly, you have exchange platforms where you have buyers and sellers come together. Your eBay, Tinder, and all of these are a few examples. All right. And how do you define the supply chain performance itself? Gartner has a perspective in terms of ranking them. So peer opinion is 25%, and return on physical assets is 15%, and ESG component. I mean, my previous speaker talked about it. Is also increasing, right? So net the way supply chains are managed few years back and the way they are being managed or expected to be managed is changing, and that is the reason why we all need to be continuously learning. All right, so I'll skip these few slides and jump into what are the various options that are available for one to get educated, right? So one could be, an entry level person. Then there are graduation, post graduation, or even diploma level kind of programs that are available. That is at the bottom of the list here, operator level. And one may be already a graduate and maybe looking at some kind of a post graduation program. There are programs available, and or the professional has already joined the company, and then on an ongoing basis she would like to update his or her skills. So there are various programs depending on the intensity of it, right? So some examples are development programs, which are usually from 2 to 6 days. There are certificate programs both online and as well in campuses, which range from 3 to 6 months. These could be weekend, these could be evenings, or even residential. Postgraduate diploma, you have 2 year programs, 1 year programs. You have models that are residential, online, and as well hybrid. And you can go deeper. I mean, if you want to really develop some kind of a analytical mindset, one could look at doing doctorate programs also. There are universities specializing in the supply chain and logistics area, right? So these are some hierarchies that are available. I already talked about some need for continuously learning. This slide is more at the operational level. I mean, we see that logistics is more and more being driven by technology. So gone are the days where somebody needs to lift the item, put it in a box, pack it, and put it on a forklift and drive it. All those are probably gone. I think most modern warehouses and factories are technology driven. So therefore, if I'm going to be a supply chain operator or a logistics operator, I need to be very, very, very well versed with technology. And the ubiquitous AI, I'm sure it must have been a topic in today's this summit also. So AI is present, and in SEM also. um, so some SCM programs that are there at the operator level, right? National Skill Development, NSDC, has come up with a lot of partnerships all around the country. There are, I believe, some 300 plus partners around the country who offer various logistics related programs. Similarly, Logistics Sector Skill Council is another quasi government body that offers training program. At the managerial level, there is a university itself constituted under the Parliament Act with Ministry of Railways. He is a Gati Shakti University Vishwavidyalaya in Vadodara, Amity School of Logistics, Flipkart Academy of Supply Chain Excellence, Mahindra Logistics Training Programs. These are various programs that are available. Globally, Massachusetts Institute of Technology has a CTL that has campuses in US, Spain, Malaysia. I believe newly they have started one in England also. Kuhn-Nagel Logistics Institute, this is in Europe. DP World, I believe this is in Dubai, if I'm not wrong. So these are some global supply chain and logistics universities. And not to be left behind, even us, and the college that I am part of, which is Institute of Management Technology, this year we have launched a 2 year MBA program called PGDM in Logistics and Supply Chain Management. And we did this in collaboration with CII, Institute of Logistics. So CII stands for Confederation of Indian Industries, which is a consortium of Indian industry, right? So that is so this is our website. You could go there and try and find. All right. My last subtopic in today's this one is there are a lot of supply chain professional associations that are rich sources of knowledge, both on a standalone basis, resources that you can download, read, and keep yourself up to date. They publish books. You can buy those books on Amazon or their own website and go about it. Also, each of these bodies that I am presenting here also have different development and certification programs for different levels. So you could pursue, once again, the certificate program or development program that is relevant for you. So I just took a snapshot or a screenshot of some of these professional associations. These are top 10, right? So and we don't in this you don't see at least one Indian site, which I have elsewhere later in the slide, right? So ASCM is one. So if you go to their website, for example, you will see in their learning and development, there are so many certificate programs that are available. You can register
Hold on.
for.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the Apix. The old name
Yeah.
is this. Yes.
Earlier it was Apix. Apix is now become AS. Yeah. All right. Institute for Supply Management is another organization. This focuses on the inbound, upstream, that is purchasing side of the supply chain. Huge following. They have, their certification program is very well respected in the industry, particularly for procurement professionals. Then there's another institute called supplychaininstitute.org. They offer some of their certificate programs, and these are some popular programs from them. All right, I said that there is Indian set of resources also. Government of India has come up with this thing called Swayam NPTEL, which is once again consortium of I think 30 odd IITs and 20-25 IIMs and various other universities. The faculty from these well respected universities have curated programs across very many engineering, technology, literature, arts, social sciences, and social sciences include things such as supply chain and logistics area. So you do a search, go to Swayam, search keywords. I've just put supply chain here, and there are these two programs that are currently open, right? So they keep coming up. They always one or two programs that are always open. You can try other keywords and look at it. The registration fee is not a lot. I mean, very much affordable. And you could do online courses, and then if you are able to they pre-specify the exam date, and if you are able to go there, and all major cities have it, write the exam and clear the test, then you get a certification also. And these are not really any small university. These are from IIT Kharagpur, and erstwhile NITI Mumbai is now Indian Institute of Management Mumbai, right? So these are the faculty from these kind of this one. So this is another source, more Indian. So Abdul Garu, with this I come to the end of my presentation.
This
And if
is a
there are
fantastic.
questions,
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kalyan Garu. Thank you very much. As usual, I think you structured the presentation in such a way. So you covered the topics very nicely, and then you also gave the opportunity for the audience to know what it is, what from a technology point of view, business processes point of view, and then the conceptual point of view. And then I think you rush about the certifications and all, but we can always share the presentation and the details to
yeah,
individuals.
all the links are on the slides. Participants can click on those links and follow through that.
If any participants would like to clarify which course is better, what is the best suit for your particular needs, all those things we can share it with Dr. Kalyan for answering them and advising. And maybe in any of our next event or next webinar or so, so we also can talk more about this topic, as it is very important at this point of time. Okay. So I take this as an opportunity, Dr. Kalyan Garu. Thank you very much for a
Thank
very
you for the
insightful lecture.
opportunity.
Very insightful lecture, and really, it's very you covered everything in your lecture. Okay, it's a nice overview of supply chain. Okay, so thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Abdul
Thank you
Garu.
very much, and have a great
I wish you
time.
all the very best.
Thank you very much.